Welcome to Daily Plunge. We're in the book of Hebrews, starting at chapter 11, verse 32, going through chapter 12, verse 2. What we're doing in this time is looking at these passages in light of Christmas, in light of the incarnation of Jesus. And one of the things we're talking about is how the Old Testament finds its fruition in Christmas. Christmas completes the deal, right? And so the author of Hebrews, who's been looking back at the Old Testament story, talks about Barak, Gideon, Samson, Jephthah. Now, these guys were not great men, but they were used by God to do great things. And so too for us. Not always got all our act together, right? He talks about David, Samuel, and the other prophets. Again, they had their flaws, but it is through faith, by trusting in God and allowing God to work through them, that they conquered nations, carried out justice, and gained what God had promised for the people of Israel. And he talks about how, God closed lions' mouths, quenched fires, they escaped the sword, routed armies, and raised the dead, right? But there were others too. And they suffered the disgrace and shame of being God's people. They were tortured and they were mocked and faced jeering. They were flogged, bound with chains and imprisoned, stoned to death, sawed in two, killed by the sword. Then they wandered deserts and mountains, and they squatted in caves and holes. In every way, they went through destitution, persecution, and mistreatment. And as the world counted them as nothing, as the world saw only their disgrace and shame, the author of Hebrews says the world was not worthy of them, that they were commended by God because they trusted God more than the temporary struggles they faced in this world, the true problems that they have. And even though they didn't receive the fullness of what God promised in that time, God has a better promise for them and for all of us in Christ Jesus. And that was the thing. They went through all that in the Old Testament, but they weren't going to get to the fullness of it until Christ came. Because, as he says in verse 40, because God has something better for us and for them that will make us perfect. Not that we will make ourselves perfect, but what's going to complete us is Jesus Christ. And so he says in verse 1, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witness, people of faith who endured the ups and downs of faith, we too should follow their path. And instead of clinging to the things of this world, we should throw off all the hindering and entangling sins of this world and instead run that race, right? To persevere in faith, to follow Jesus Christ, to fix our gaze, our eyes, to make him our goal. Make Jesus Christ the goal of our life, because he's the one who cuts the path for our faith. He makes it possible. We wouldn't get through the wilderness of sin without him. And he is the perfecter and completer of our faith. And how did he do this? By enduring the shame and disgrace of the cross. And so the author of Hebrews is talking about how Christmas ends in the cross, and about how it is the shame and disgrace of this world, that this world mocks, that God is working through that to bring about his promises. Thanks, friends. Have a blessed day.